morning, Mr. Slager. Good morning, everybody.
Morning, Chairperson.
Good. Good morning, Mr. Zwane.
Chairperson, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for availing yourself, and thank you to your legal representative for all the cooperation. Thank you. Thank you. Are you ready, Mr. Slager?
I am, Chairperson.
Okay, all right. Please administer the oath of affirmation.
Please state your full names for the record.
Mosebenzi Joseph Zwane.
Do you have any objection to making the prescribed affirmation?
No.
Do you affirm that the evidence you will give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, please raise your right hand and say, I truly affirm.
I truly affirm.
Thank you. We may proceed.
Yes, thank you, Chair.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chairperson. ESCOM Bundle 19. ESCOM Bundle 19, Mr. Zwane's affidavits are found in Exhibit U41 on page 351.
Yes.
Mr. Zwane has submitted another affidavit arising from...
I see his own statement at 201, not 51. Did you say 501?
351 is the first affidavit. Just by way of reference, Chair.
351 is the first one.
Is the first one.
Let me see.
Oh, is it? Sorry, it is the...
Okay, well...
That's the second one.
That can't be the first, yeah.
Yes, that's
the
the
first
second
one must be the one at 201.
Yes, correct, Chair.
Yeah.
That's the second one. And Mr. Zwane has then submitted another affidavit
Yeah.
arising from the outer report and questions in relation thereto.
Yeah.
That is on page 353.219.
.219.
219.
I guess we must start by admitting that, isn't it?
Correct, Chair. Yes.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Mr. Zwane, are you on the same page?
I am.
353.219.
Yes.
It's between the tram lines, it's an affidavit. Mosebenzi Joseph Zwane. In respond to statement by Benjamin Cecil Clark Tron, dated 24 July 2017. You see that?
I do.
The affidavit runs up to page 353.234. Point 234.
Yes.
You see that? Do you confirm the signature above deponent, that is your signature?
Yes, I do.
The affidavit is dated or deposed to on 10 May 2021. You confirm the contents of the affidavit,
Yes, I do.
that they are true and correct?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Chairperson, I beg leave to have this affidavit dated 10 May 2021, admitted as Exhibit U41.3, together with the annexures thereto. And those annexures, Chair, they start from page 353.235.
Yes. The affidavit of Mr. Mosebenzi Joseph Zwane that starts at page 353.219 will, together with its annexures, be admitted and will be marked as Exhibit U41.3.
Thank you, Chair. Just to recap, Mr. Zwane's evidence relates to a number of aspects, some of which we addressed in his last appearance. And we hope to finish off today, Mr. Zwane. Just in broad light, or just to touch on the highlights, we dealt with the issues regarding your trips to India, which allegedly were sponsored by the Guptas. We want to finish off on that and then deal with issues relating to Mr. Zwane's the start, as he called it, his own brainchild, which is the Estina project in the Free State. We will deal with that, Mr. Zwane, deal with the issues relating to Estina, the evidence of certain witnesses that have already come before the Commission regarding what happened in regard to the project. Look at whether or not the Guptas were involved in the project. We will also deal with issues relating to your appointment as an MP and ultimately your appointment as the Minister of DMR, Department of Mineral Resources, how you were appointed and what you did as a result thereof, and also deal with the issue regarding the water clue of lending of the Gupta airplane in 2013, which from there is the wedding at Sun City. And we will finalize with the closure of bank accounts, your chairpersonship as in the interministerial committee and what role you played in regard thereto. So that's in a nutshell.
No, that's fine, but I wonder whether it wouldn't be convenient to finalize everything connected with emails.
Yes.
And I know the emails will go all over the place. They will touch upon all the items I think you mentioned. But it might be convenient to just deal with that, get it out of the way, even if after that you can then focus on specific topics. If that's not going to disturb your plan.
Yes, and the emails the chairperson has in mind, those ones we were dealing with
last
on
time.
the previous occasion.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's fine. Mr. Zwane, let's then pick it up from the evidence, or the affidavit rather, of Mr. Teron. And there we were dealing with the emails in regard to the bookings of the trip or the flight in September 2014. That booking was made by Travel Excellence.
Just tell us first where to find that.
Yes, I'm going there. That is on page 353.134.
253 or 353?
353.134.
Okay. Yeah, okay.
Mr. Zwane, you were there as well.
Have you found the page, Mr. Zwane?
Yes, Chair.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. Now, the allegation in this regard, Mr. Zwane, is that the details of trips that you had arranged by the Guptas or Mr. Ashok Chwala of Sahara Computers, and that there were emails exchanged to show that. Firstly, we went through the one of the choir, and maybe I should start with the choir because you have responded to that one in your affidavit. Chair, I know I've referred you to a page, but because the choir issue has come up, maybe I should start with it.
Okay,
Yes, maybe I should start with it.
all right.
Because Mr. Zwane deals with that in his affidavit. Mr. Zwane, you know that in your affidavit you do say, which is the affidavit we've just admitted this morning, you do say that you in fact were on the same plane with the choir going to India.
Yes, I did realize that.
Yeah. Because that is slightly different from in your main affidavit where you say you came to know about the choir being in India when you were already in India and you tried to meet with them.
Thank you, Chair. Let me deal with that matter.
Please, please address the chairperson.
I was aware that the choir will be taking a trip. I did say that. I also said I was not involved in terms of the organization of that trip. I did indicate that I said to the choir, I was also going to India around that month. And if it happens that we meet in India and I have time, I'll make time and come and see them performing. And I should also say, Chair, I did say I did not become part of the traveling arrangement with the choir. My name was included in the itinerary of the choir, which we dealt with last time, and I said that I do not know how my name was included there because I made my own travel arrangement, and contrary to the view that was expressed by Mr. Thoron, that I was paid for by the Guptas, I was fortunately able, during the week which I was given by this commission, to get documents that indicates that there was an approval given to me as an MEC to go to India and go and lure investors there. I have since also included as an annexure the payment thereof, because I was fortunate to get that. And the issue that I dealt with earlier on, that I was not part of the itinerary of the choir or the people who were arranged for by the choir. There was a question that was asked to me that was I part of the lunch that was prepared. And in the email of Mr. Toroy, it is indicated that 24 people attended the lunch. If you minus 24 from 27, which is in the itinerary, it will make clear to this commission that the 3 people that are part of the approval of the trip were not part of that lunch. So I thought I should raise those issues and clarify them.
Of course, you say you were one of those 3.
Yes.
Yeah. But, Mr. Zwane, on that issue, obviously the question arises is if your choir had a lunch at Mr. Gupta's house in India, how did they know about it?
I did explain and clarify that matter last when I was here. I do not own the choir. The choir is not my choir. I have said I did give or lend a hand there and there where they would need my support, because I was involved in the formation of the choir as a program of government which was called social cohesion. There were a number of activities that were undertaken under social cohesion. So I may not know the details in terms of how the choir goes about in terms of sourcing funds. I did raise that point even last time.
Yes, no. I'm not sure that answers this question. How did the choir know about Mr. Tony Gupta and the itinerary, including going to Mr. Gupta's house for lunch? So if you take that with the fact that it was your iPad, your email address, that was being used to exchange information in regard to who's going to share a room and who's not going to share a room, it seems from the totality of that evidence that you seem to be the connection between the choir, whether it's your choir or not, but it's a choir founded by you and others. You seem to be the connection between the choir and Mr. Tony Gupta and /all the Sahara Computer people. What is your comment on that?
Chair, I did indicate last time when I was here that indeed at some point I did lend my gadget to a member of the choir who wanted to send a Gmail. I did say in my last statement that I was not privy to the contents of that email as it was sent. I deny the assertion that I seem to be a common denominator in this arrangement. I have said earlier on, the choir made its own arrangements, which I'm not privy to. And I want to put that statement and repeat it on record here today.
Who were the... okay, you've counted 27 guests, and minus 3, you said 24 seems to have attended the lunch at Mr. Tony Gupta's house. Who were the other 3 of which you say are the department's officials?
The 3 was me, Ms. Mutau, and Mr. Ashok Narayan.
See.
By the way, who was Ms. Mutau? Just remind me.
She was an official working in my department, Chair.
Yes.
Office manager.
Office manager.
Yes.
In your office?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So that's the one trip. So
I'm sorry.
yes, sir.
So, is your version, Mr. Zwane, that the fact that you and the choir traveled in the same flight to India was just a coincidence? Or you say, no, it was planned that let's go together, but we were going for different purposes and we were not being paid for by the same source. I was being paid for by the department, and I don't know who was paying for the choir.
Chair, I planned my trip to India, followed all the processes, evidence thereof is here. And I think in the middle or towards the end of processes, I learned that the choir was going to India. That's what I've said, even in my affidavit, around the same time. That is why I said, if my program allowed, I will take a turn where you are. Because I am going to India on my work. That is what transpired.
Yes, but it doesn't answer my question yet. My question is whether it was just a coincidence or it was a plan. It was planned that you would travel in the same flight with the choir.
No, it was not on my side planned, Chair.
So as far as you are concerned, it was a coincidence.
I think so.
Okay, all right. Mr. Selega?
Yeah. Mr. Zwane, you would have seen the affidavit of Mr. Ephraim Dlamini, one of the community members in regard to the dairy farm. And he says there that, to the commission in an affidavit, that they had been promised...
And where is the affidavit?
That's on page... Chairperson, it starts on page 353.308.
308.
Yes. 308, and the paragraph I want to refer to, Chair, is on page 353.315. paragraph 27.
Paragraph
Paragraph 27.
27 on page
35.
315.
That's correct, Chair.
Okay, go ahead.
So that's Mr. Ephraim Makhosini Dlamini. He is one of the farmers, and he says, and would have been one of the beneficiaries in the project. And in paragraph 27, he says, the committee we selected to interface with the government on all matters relating to the dairy project failed to report back to us on any developments. Having been promised training in India, we heard instead that Mr. Zwane had taken a choir he supported to India. So, any comment on that, Mr. Zwane?
No, thanks, Chair. I have read this affidavit by Mr. Dlamini. I would have loved if Mr. Dlamini was asked by this commission to give evidence in terms of that assertion. Because to the best of my recollection, my knowledge and belief, there was never a stage where I was present as the MEC of Agriculture and people were promised to go to India. To do what?
So there would be beneficiaries of the project. We're not promised any training.
There were beneficiaries of the project that would have been trained in South Africa, mainly because they were farmers who would have known in the course of them doing their business simple facts about farming. It boggles my mind, why would we then have taken people to India for a simple training? By whom? Because those would have, in the affidavit of Mr. Dlamini, in the issues that we are discussing here, who was supposed to train them in India?
Yeah, continue, finish.
If there's any evidence to that, Chair, I will be gladly willing to engage, but from where I'm seated, there was never at any point during my tenure as the MEC of Agriculture where beneficiaries were promised a trip to India. In fact, if you look at witnesses that have came here, it took some time before beneficiaries were properly organized into a unit, and by the time they would have formed committees and so forth, I would have actually have moved out of that department, because this trip was around October in 2012. And if you look at your details in terms of what was happening during that time, it was the time where the department was busy still bringing these beneficiaries together, trying to get into contracts with them. So I don't think there is an issue or any matter that was raised of people being trained to India that I know of.
My understanding of what Mr. Dlamini is saying is that they, as the intended beneficiaries of the project, had been promised training. Now, if the training was to take place in India, maybe that wouldn't be surprising, because the evidence is to the effect that, and I think it's the evidence of Mr. Tabete, is to the effect that he had undertaken a trip to India. I think he also had gone there with Mr. Narayan.
Yes.
Yeah. As I recall, his evidence, the purpose of the trip by him was to go and see how the Indian company, I forget what it was called now,
Paras.
how they dealt with what you wanted to do under this project in the Free State, because he said it seemed that there was something to be learned as to how they dealt with it there. So he went there, and of course, as we know, according to his evidence, ultimately that company was part of the project in the Free State, according to his evidence. There is a suggestion that that company denied that, but let's leave that aside. According to his evidence, that company was part of the Estina project, and of course, people who were brought in to work on the project were from India. So it would make sense if the position was, you people are going to be beneficiaries to this project. Maybe you must go there and see how people who are beneficiaries there, what they do, what their role is, get to understand, because we want this to be as successful here as it is in India. That is one approach. Of course, another approach might be the training would take place in the Free State, and people who had the know-how from India could be brought into South Africa. So what do you say to that, assuming that it is true that they were promised that they would be given training?
No, Chair, I will be speculating. I'm saying to this commission,
Yeah.
To the best of my recollection, my knowledge and belief, that was never the case. If that was the case, let Mr. Dlamini produce evidence so that the person who promised them can actually be able to answer what was on his mind when he promised these people.
Okay. Mr. Salega?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Mr. Zwane, you have testified that you knew the Guptas from 2010 when they came for a T&A breakfast.
Yes.
To your knowledge, did any member of the choir have any relations with the Guptas? Because this is now 2012.
I would prefer that we do not call this choir my choir.
Yeah, that's why I stopped. I stopped myself from calling it your choir.
Yes.
But I'm asking, to your knowledge...
What is the name of the choir? Let's call it by name.
Umsingizane.
Umsingizane, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Wait. I will have to remember that, Chair.
No, you can just say the choir. I think I'll understand.
Umsingizane is a Zulu word.
Yes.
It's Umsingizane is part of grass.
Oh.
But I don't know whether that's what they had in mind. It may mean that the choir was intended to be well-grounded, well-rooted. Do you know whether it's connected with what I'm saying, Mr. Zwane? Or it's just something else? Or maybe it's not Zulu.
Chair, I've never called you by your clan name in this commission. But allow me to say Mtian. I wouldn't know how they arrive
At the name.
to that particular name. As you say, I know that Mosebenzi is a grass
Yeah.
that normally is not eaten by cattle. Is used to do the Zulu and Sutu mats and heads. That's all what I know. But
Yes, yeah.
as to what they had in mind,
Yeah.
I wouldn't know.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I think you know more about Singizane than I do. Okay, all right.
Yes, my question was, you knew the Guptas since 2010.
Well, I was going to say, anyway, this is the only choir we are talking about. So if you forget the name, if you
Yeah,
say the
that's the
choir,
choir.
we'll know which one.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, you knew them from 2010. We are now in 2012. And the emails are exchanged to your email address. But you are saying they are meant for the choir. So, to your knowledge, did any of your choir members have any relation or direct link with the Guptas?
The organizer of the choir at that time, I think it was Mr. Tomo. In fact, I must say, maybe it will assist the commission, that the choir was composed of up-and-coming artists from different areas, as I've said, different backgrounds. And but seemingly when the choir, after the choir was formed, they then agreed that a certain Mr. Tomo would actually be the organizer.
The organizer or the conductor?
Organizer,
Okay.
in terms of whatever events that must come.
That are connected with the choir.
Yes.
Okay.
I wouldn't know exactly his networks and connections, but he did his job very well, I must say, because as I've said earlier on, the choir traveled the length and breadth of South Africa. And so to go to your question, I wouldn't know that information, but he was an easy to go person.
Did you say Tony Hood?
The Tomo.
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 Yeah.
Yes.
He said Mr. Tomo would organize.
Yes.
Oh. Yeah. And,
And Tomo is Thomo or Tomo?
Thomo.
Thomo, yeah. And you remember his name or not?
I think his name was Mfana Futi.
Mfana Food.
Yes.
Okay. Boy again. That's the Zulu version.
I'm
So,
really sorry, Chair. It's not my intention, but it's Advocate Slike who wants to know these details. Unfortunately, they are Zulu names. I can't help. I can't change them.
You can't change the
No, I
names.
can't change them.
Well, I suspect that he is not the firstborn in his family, because when you are given that name, it means that there is a boy or boys ahead of you.
Yeah.
So the parents say, "Oh, it's a boy again."
Yeah, it may happen that the parents were expecting
Yeah,
a girl.
girl.
There is
Yeah.
no girl
Yeah.
before him, so they were disappointed that it's a boy again.
Okay, all right.
Yes. Let's, I was looking at the list of the names, which is on page 353.129, Chairperson. Point 129.
353.129.
129, yes.
Okay.
Which is that list, Mr. Zwane, about sharing of rooms and those who would not share. I see under those who are going to share, number 8, there's that surname of Tomo. On which page are you?
129, I am there, Chair.
Yes.
Number?
Number 8 under those who are sharing.
Oh, Mr. F.L. Tomo. I'm saying Mr. It doesn't say Mr., but it's F.L. Tomo.
Yeah.
Well,
Yes.
F.
Could that be the person?
Yes.
That should be the person.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
So the organizer didn't have a computer. How was he going to organize?
If you take it back in 2012, in a rural area like Free State, there were many youngsters who would have not had a luxury of a computer.
So this is an email from Ashu, whom I take to be Ashu Chawla, simply because there is an Ashu Chawla that is connected with Sahara Computers, because his email is ashu@sahara.co.za. So he sends an email on the 13th October 2012 to Naresh Khosla at sesindia.com, and he says room sharing. But before that, there is an email from Zwane@gmail.com. Yeah, I think you accepted that. That's your email address. And it's on October 18, 2012, and it was sent at 2:46 p.m. And it was sent from your email to Ashok Narayan. Okay, no, so that, yeah, Ashok Narayan at that address, walemsa@gmail.com, and the subject is detailed itinerary. And it says here, with a rooming list as expected, non-sharing, MJ Zwane, T.I. Mutaung, A. Narayan, C.N. Hadebe, M.E. Mukwena, M.P. Mabaso, and M.M. Mutaung. Those are not sharing rooms, and then the rest are sharing rooms. And then above that, it's an email from Ashok Narayan that is addressed to Ashu at Sahara, and the subject is room sharing details. And it's sent from his iPhone, so it's being forwarded message. And then Ashu sends at the top, sends the room sharing details to Naresh Khosla at sesindia.com and Khosla Naresh at hotmail.com, SM Ritiet Hindu Jaha at oberongroup.com, and the subject is room sharing. So, as I recall, you said this, the reason why this has got your email address is because a member of the choir needed assistance to send an email, and you offered your cell phone, is that right?
Yes, I offered my gadget.
Yeah.
Chair, yes, that is correct.
By the way, I think you said you gave it to an official in your office to help them. Is that right?
Yes.
So it was sent by an official in your office.
Yes.
Or in the department.
Yes.
To Ashok Narayan.
Well, as these things,
yes.
these things stands, remember I did say in this commission, Chair,
Yeah.
that I was not privy
Yeah.
to the information.
Yes.
I just made my gadget available
Yeah.
for the choir to perform whatever
Yeah.
they needed to perform, yes.
Yes. So, and you say that you never told anybody that you were going to be on this trip and that you would be one of those who would not be sharing rooms.
There is evidence, Chair, on my side,
Yeah.
and it's here,
Yeah.
that I paid for my trip, my accommodation and everything.
Yeah.
There was no need
Yeah.
for the three of us
Yeah.
to be put in any sharing or not sharing, because we're not part
Yes.
of the arrangement of
Yes.
this itinerary.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, no, I understand that. I'm trying to get to understand how your name came to be here. So you are clear that you never told the official to whom you gave your gadget that you were going to be part of this trip.
Of the choir?
Of the choir?
No.
Yes.
No,
And
Chair.
you never told them that you should be put into the list of those who would not be sharing rooms.
Yes, Chair.
So you don't know where they got this from.
Chair, I don't know where they got this from. Despite that fact, as Chair has indicated, this email seems to be a copy of the email which was sent, the Gmail which was sent. It's not an original document from my gadget. It's a copy which I may not be privy in terms of the amendments that were made to that copy. All what I know is that at any stage, I did not submit my name to the choir for this trip. I did say on record last time when we were here that my wild thought was that because I had performed about 2 songs with the choir, which I said earlier on, they thought maybe I will join them. And I think that is what I can speculate up to this far. Chair, yes.
Do you have a recollection whether on the occasion you gave your gadget to the official, there was a member of the choir who was there in your office or at the time, or who was going to be with the official who used your gadget? Chair, or you can't remember?
That happened a long time ago. Perusing the information
Documents.
by Mr. Peron, To my best recollection, that was on a weekend. So that I don't come here and explain why I worked on a weekend.
Well, you came to the commission on a public holiday, Mr. Zwane, so...
It may not be the same when I come here, Chair. So
Yeah.
it was a weekend, and if I recall, we had a program somewhere in Thabo Mfutsanyana, and the choir was performing there.
In that function.
In that function.
And that was a departmental function.
It was a departmental function.
Okay.
Yes. And so I was busy doing something, so I lended the gadget to lend the help. That's what I know.
Okay, so would the answer be that there would have been some member of the choir with the official, or you are not sure, but you know that they were performing?
I've said that is my suspicion.
Yeah.
I don't know, Chair. I was
Okay.
not part of this arrangement.
Okay, no, that's fine. Mr. Selega.
Mr. Zwane, you have said that you paid for the trip yourself.
The department.
The department paid for the trip. Can you show us where is that proof of payment? You say it's here.
In this,
Must be attached to your affidavit, isn't it?
you said it's 319, 219.
219, yeah. The annexures to that affidavit.
The information that I was given starts from 235.
Yes.
236.
The information you were given.
I requested for for this information, Chair. I'm no longer in that department. As I've said last time when I was here, that it may take me some time.
Yeah.
So whatever was given to me, I made sure that I try and help the commission
Yeah.
to understand where I'm coming from.
Yes.
Yes. There is 241, the approval of the...
Well, maybe let's do it quickly. At page 2, 353.235, what document is that, Mr. Zwane? Transaction log sheet. You know what it represents? It's written surname and initials Zwane MJ, parcel number is given, and then the date given is 7/12/12, and the transaction code is given there, and another code, and the badge. What document is that, and what is it supposed to show?
This is a proof, Chair, that I think this document has to do with subsistence and traveling. It's a proof that the department for this trip paid for my subsistence and traveling.
That date of 7 December 2012, what does it represent? It's a date for what? Do you know?
I think this, let me say, Chair, the document as they are, we normally don't get to that level of detail as MECs.
Yeah.
And this commission makes me to get to those details. I may not be spot on, but my suspicion is that this transaction log sheet was delayed and was only filled in after some time when I was even back from my trip to India.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, the reason we have to ask you is because you attach them to your affidavit. So that's why we have to ask you, what do they represent?
Yes.
Let's go to page 353.236. What does that document represent? It says in the heading, subsistence and traveling claim, claimed by surname and initial Zwane MJ, personal number is given, claim description, S&T, and then next to that is written India, period start 15 October 2012, period end date 23 October 2012. Are those dates the dates for your trip? Did you leave on the 15th October 2012 and came back on the 23rd October 2012?
That is correct, Chair.
Okay. And there is a reference to advance taken, and then there is amount, and then what is written there is 729504. And then next to that, there is something handwritten. It's like divide by 3 and 80A. And then on a column, there is 729504, and the total is 729504. Is that the amount you claimed for S&T? That's 729,504 rand.
I think this is the amount, Chair.
Yeah.
To the best of my knowledge, is that there is a formula of calculating this amount that will include the currency of the country where you are going, compared to the currency of the country where you are departing from.
But do you know whether the amount is what I'm indicating here, or is it 7,295 rand 4 cents, or is it 729,504 rand?
No, Chair. Let me not speculate.
Well, you must remember whether your S&T claim for what, 10 days or whatever, would have gone up to 729,000 rand.
I think it's 7,000.
7,000.
295. Yes.
And 4 cents.
Yes, Chair.
Yeah. Okay. All right. And I see that it's stamped 6 December 2012. And you seem to have signed on the 16th November 2012. Mutaum T.I. signed also. Yes. Mr. Selega, do you want to ask any questions in connection with that?
Yes. Mr. Zwane, I see that at the top of that page, that is point 236, yeah, that one where you are. The period start date is indicated to be 15 October 2012. And period end is 23 October 2012. You see that?
Yes.
Period start.
Yes, I see that.
But the allegation regarding the India trip is said to have taken place on the 13th of October, 2012, which will be 2 days before this date there.
Maybe for the sake of completeness, Mr. Selega, you can also just check when the choir came back.
Yes, the choir, according to the itinerary, the choir came back on the 22nd
Yes.
of October,
Yes.
which is a day before the 23rd.
Yes. Mr. Zwane?
What must I
Well,
answer,
the,
Chair?
the first question is that according to this document that we just dealt with, namely the one at page 353.236, your trips you left on the 15th, or the S&T claim relates to a period starting from the 15th of October 2012 and ending on 23 October 2012, whereas Mr. Selega says the choir left on the 13th of October, 2 days before this. And I think that question is being asked in the context of the fact that it is your evidence that you did travel in the same plane as the choir.
The trip indeed was according to the approval, was meant to take place from the 15th to the 23rd. And Chair, I must indicate that I do not have an answer in terms of this question.
Yeah.
This is what
Okay.
I know about, but to the best of my recollection, maybe the itinerary of the choir might be the one which is faulty. To the best of my recollection, that's the recollection. I may be wrong. I'm happy to
Yeah.
acknowledge that point. It's yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Now, but your recollection is that you came back from India on the 23rd
Yes,
of October.
because according to my itinerary, I had engagement on the 22nd.
Yeah.
Yes,
And the choir, Mr. Selega says the choir came back on the 22nd of October. Is that correct, Mr. Selega?
Yes, Chair, I'm looking at, maybe Mr. Zwane will help us, page 353.130 and point 131. Yeah, point 130 and point 131.
yes,
That's in regard to the itinerary. You will see against, there are dates there, Mr. Zwane, against some of what is written there. The 16.
Yes, I can see that. I don't know if
That's
Mr.
right.
Zwane can see it.
And if you,
21st October 1700 arrival at Mumbai Hotel,
That's
pick
right.
up International Continental,
That's
and
right.
relax for the rest of the evening. 22nd October, 8 o'clock breakfast at hotel, 9 o'clock checkout, that is now 22nd, checkout from the hotel, and proceed for day tour going Gateway, India, lunch outside nearby and going towards an orbit mall shopping and dinner. And after that, straight proceed for airport to fly back home. Luxury Volvo required at Mumbai International at 8 a.m. for a whole day city tour and drop at airport at 10:30 p.m. That must be 10:30 p.m. on the 22nd, I think.
I think so, Chair.
And
Yes.
up to 12 hours and 120 kilometers, extra per kilometer, extra per hour. That's, well, if that, in terms of that itinerary, the choir could not have arrived back on the 22nd, I think.
Yes.
Because they were still going to spend a day there. But do we have anything that shows when they actually arrived back?
Not in the files.
And not there is nothing that indicates.
No, except for what is attached here, Chair.
Yeah.
Yes.
It does say here at page 353.131, after that, straight proceed for airport to fly
Yes.
back home. So if they were going to, if that is on the 22nd, which must be evening, I guess, then they would have arrived in South Africa on the 23rd. And flying from India to South Africa, if you leave in the evening in India, you would arrive on the 23rd, would you not, Mr. Zwane? You know you did fly.
I think the chair is correct.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Well, I think we must just check, see if there is something concrete about when they arrive.
Yes.
Yeah. Of course, what this does raise, Mr. Zwane, which you obviously appreciate, I think, is it seems that your stay in India was for more or less the same duration as the choir.
Mm-hmm. Yes, Chair.
Yeah. So you have a situation where, one, you are the founder of the choir or one of the founders, whatever the position is. You have an association with the choir. That's something. Two, there is an email made from your gadget which lists you as one of the people going on this trip with the choir. You say it's done by an official from your department. Three, you are in the same flight as them to India. Four, you stay in India for more or less the same period as them. And if you came back on the 23rd, and if this information at page 353.131 is correct, it looks like the planning for the choir was for them to arrive back in South Africa on the 23rd as well. Whether they actually arrived back on the 23rd at this stage, we don't know. But the planning was that they should arrive back in South Africa on the 23rd. Now, the planning of your own trip must have been that you should arrive back about the 23rd as well, unless the planning was that you were going to come back earlier and something changed and the date was changed. Do you recall whether from the beginning, the 23rd was the planned day of return on your part or in the department's part for your trip?
Two issues here, Chair.
Yeah.
I thought earlier on, I was asked a question whether the choir traveled on the 13th.
Oh, yes, yes. Do you want to deal with that?
No, I'm just saying on this issue.
On what
that
I'm saying?
What the chairperson is raising,
Yes, there's a difference.
there's a difference there. Number two,
I accept that. That's why I said almost.
yeah.
I said it's for almost the same period.
Number two, if you look at 241,
353.241.
353.241,
Yeah.
I had a clear itinerary.
Let's get there. 241.
2.3, Chair.
Sorry? 243.
At
241. It starts on 241, Chair.
Oh,
Point
241.
Yeah.
Point
yes.
2.3. Down there.
Okay, just say it again now. I'm getting confused.
The page is
353.241.
241.
Okay, I'm there. That's
Down there, 2.3.
let's first say this appears to be a letter from Mr. M.P. Tabete, Head of Department for Agriculture, addressed to the Premier, Honorable E.S. Magashule, Free State Provincial Government, and the subject is request for approval for MEC of Department for Agriculture and Rural Development, Mr. M.J. Zwane, Ms. I.T. Mutawung, and Ashok Narayana to attend a strategic meeting with the Department of Agriculture and strategic partners in India from the 15th to 23 October 2012. Okay. So, yes, continue.
I'm saying 2.3 will give indication to this commission
Yes,
about my business in India.
yes. Yes. 2.3 says, that is of that letter, says the following meetings have therefore been arranged for the MEC. 1, bullet point 1, Minister of Agriculture, State of Uttarakhand, Mr. Trivendra Singh Rawat, on October 16 at Dehradun. Bullet point 2, Minister of Agriculture, State of Uttar Pradesh, Mr. Shivpal Yadav, on October 18 at Agra. Bullet point 3, meeting and tour of Paras Dairy, October 19, 2012. Bullet point 4, Minister of Agriculture, State of Maharashtra, Mr. R.V. Patil, on October 22 at Mumbai. And then 4.1 says on page 353.242, it is recommended that approval be granted by the Honorable Premier for Mr. M.J. Zwane, Ms. I.T. Mutawung, and Mr. Ashok Narayan to undertake a trip to India from 15 to 23 October 2012. So the point you are making is that from the start, your trip was planned to be from 15 October to 23. You would depart on the 15th of October and arrive back on the 23rd of October. You say that was your trip as organized by the department?
Yes.
Okay. But you accept, I guess, you accept the things that I was observing, to say, except for saying, if the choir left on the 13th, you left on the 15th. But you accept that it's almost the same duration.
Yes, I do, Chair.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And Chair, on the first one, going out, Mr. Zwane, if you flew on the same flight, only one date can be correct. Either the 13th or the 15th. So it's neither here nor there which date at this point. But the fact that you flew out together, so your trip coincided almost to the letter.
Yeah, almost exactly,
Yes.
yeah. Because you could not have been on the same flight with them on the 13th to India and be on the same flight with them from South Africa to India again on the 15th. So either your department has got it wrong about the 15th, or somebody else who says the choir was left on the 13th got it wrong. It's not the 13th, it's the 15th. But in the end, it might not matter whether it's the 13th or the 15th. If it is accepted, as you do accept, that you were on the same flight to India with the choir, and indications are that the choir must have arrived back on the 23rd as well. We are not sure, but we suspect based on that itinerary. If the choir also arrived back on the 23rd, then your period of the trip with the choir is exactly the same. If that's the position, so you accept that those facts, except that we are not sure that the choir arrived back on the 23rd, but it looks like that's what we are saying.
I'm also not sure whether I was right when I said we traveled together.
Yes.
On the 15th, I think.
Okay.
I think we must raise
check
that point.
Yeah. Okay.
But Chair, the issue here, as raised by Mr. Thoron, was that I traveled together with the choir
At the expense of
the Guptas.
Guptas, yeah.
That was an issue.
Yeah.
And I've since, in this commission, reflected that that is not correct. The issue that we're talking about now, it's beyond my control. In a plane, as you go to India or China or anywhere, there are obviously people in that plane which have booked themselves, going where they're going. Some are going where you are going, and they are from South Africa. I have met a number of people on my various trips whom I know. Where are you going? I'm going to China or Russia. When are you coming back? Maybe there will be a difference of 2 or 3 days. That to me is not an issue. I think what I was trying to reflect in this commission is that the assertions as made by Mr. Thoron, because I think Mr. Thoron is the reason why we had to get to this point, are not correct.
No, I think, Mr. Zwane, the point you make is an important point, namely that you are dealing with the allegation that your trip was paid for by the Guptas head on.
Yes.
You are saying, I have checked with the department, here are documents that support my version that this was an official trip and it was not paid for by the Guptas. It would have been paid for by the department. But the other aspects that we have been dealing with may be related to the issue that you said that you may have been in the plane, the same plane was just a coincidence. Mm-hmm. You were not involved in the planning of the choir trip. It might go to that, to say, was it all a coincidence? But you are right to say the issue of who paid is an important issue for your trip. Yeah, okay, all right. Let's take the tea adjournment. resume at 11:45. It's nearly 25. We adjourn. Look at the black numbers. Remember to look at the black numbers on the left corner of each page.
Okay. Okay, Chair.
353.21. Yes. That's Mr. Ron's affidavit, as I understand the position.
Yes.
121.
Yeah.
Yes.
You found it.
Okay.
Okay.
So what we have been dealing with is paragraph 30. Paragraph 30.
Yes.
Of particular concern is the evidence of a kickback from the Guptas to Zwane and other officials in the department for facilitating the Estina scheme. In October 2012, shortly after the launch of the Estina project, Zwane, officials from his department and local gospel choir, the Umsingizani...
I'm sorry, Mr. Silega. Don't forget the question or point you wanted to pursue. Can we go back? Or no, maybe we don't need to go back.
Okay.
What was the purpose of your trip to India from 15 October to 23 October 2012?
As shown in my itinerary, I was going to meet with different ministers
It was two ministers,
companies.
Is that right?
Yeah, it was about two ministers.
I think when I looked at that letter from Mr. Tabete to the Premier,
Yes.
it was two ministers, is that right?
Yes.
Yes.
In
The
fact-
one was Minister of Agriculture, the other one, or they were ministers of agriculture from different states?
Different states, yes.
Okay, but both were ministers of agriculture.
I should also indicate, Chair, that in that itinerary, I was scheduled to go and see the plant in Paras.
In Paras, yes. Yes.
When I was there, I think the CEO of the company was not available. So that trip did not materialize.
That meeting with the CEO.
Yeah,
Okay.
of Paras
The
did not
tour.
materialize. That is
Yeah.
why consistently in my affidavit, I have been saying I've never been to Paras
Yes.
and I've never met them. But just to complete the question you have asked, Chair, after the announcement of Mohomamobu, there were actually a number of projects in that Mohomamobu concept. And they were divided in terms of the districts of the province. I can recall we had vegetable farming, we had fishery, we had meat, we have sheep farming, just to mention but a few. We will collaborate with any country who shows interest in those projects. So as I went out, it's not only India. I remember that the fishery was at some point finally supported by the Chinese. And it happened. As to how far it is now, I can't tell. I know that the poultry was also supported by a company called VKB in the Free State, and a number of farmers have since benefited out of that project. So that was the aim, Chair. Thank you.
So, was the purpose of the trip, therefore, to meet with the two ministers of agriculture from different states?
Yes.
And to visit the Paras farm or headquarters. Is that right?
Yes, that's right, Chair.
Those were the three important things you were to do
No,
while
they
you
were-
were in India as far as the department was concerned?
There were 4, Chair.
Okay.
I think we're missing the 4th one. I can quickly,
Let's go to that letter from Mr. Tabeta,
353.241.
241.
there were actually 3 ministers I was supposed to meet with, Chair.
Oh, it was 3.
Yes.
Okay, the one was Mr. Rawat, Singh Rawat. The other was Mr. Yadav.
Yes.
And the other was Mr. Patil. Mr. Patil was on the 22nd. Yes. Yes. So on the 16th October, Mr. Rawat. On the 18th of October, Mr. Yadav. And then on the 22nd of October, Mr. Patel. Okay, and then Paras was supposed to be on the 19th. Yes, okay, all right. Thank you.
Yes.
Yes, Mr. Seleka. Then we can,
Thank you, Chair.
yeah,
Let me just pursue this.
we can go back to, oh, you are pursuing something?
Yeah, let me just.
Yeah, okay.
Mr. Zwane, then it means you say the tour to the Paris plant didn't take place.
Yes.
So the 19th became open. The 19th of October became open for you.
Yes, it was open for me, yes, Chair.
Yes. From your itinerary, we also see that the 17th, the 20th, and the 21st seem to be open for you. So what, you say yes?
Would have
Yes,
been free,
yes.
yeah.
Yes. And so on those days, which 1, 2, 3, 4 days, do you mind telling the chairperson what would have been your activities in those days? Because the itinerary for the choir has those days. Maybe you accompany the choir on those days.
No, thanks, Advocate Seleka. Chair, I did say, indeed, 1 or 2 occasions, I did go and watch the choir performing. I did say that in this commission. Normally, if you have meetings back to back like this, you have information, you come back, you process it. If there's any issue that you need to follow up, then you have a day to do that follow-up. So that when you come back and give a report, you have tried your level best to actually give account fruitfully. So normally those days we'll then deal with how was the trip, how was the meeting, do we need to make a follow-up? When we're still here on any other issue, call back home. If you need to call back home and get some more information and provide. Yes.
Did you say you did meet with the choir?
I did say last time, Chair,
Okay.
when I was here, that I did meet with the choir once or twice. Yes.
Okay, once or twice. The tour, which didn't take place, as you say, to Paris plant,
Yes.
what was the purpose for that?
I did indicate that the top official there, I think it was CEO, was not available. He
Yes.
had some urgent matters to attend to.
Yes, but what was the purpose?
The purpose was that because I was already going to India for these others, check for myself in terms of the report that I got from the officials about the capacity that Paras has. By and large, that was the purpose, Chair.
You were going to check Paras' capacity to do what?
We were informed that Paras had capacity in terms of quantities, milk quantities. It also had rights in terms of marketing, selling milk. And I thought when I was there, I may as well verify the report that was given to the executive and to myself in terms of Paras. That is why I wanted to meet with the top official and just ascertain whether we're in the right direction.
You remember whether Mr. Tabete's trip to India preceded yours or yours preceded his?
No, Chair, I don't remember those details.
But you do know he did go to
I
India.
know he did go.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah, and I would imagine when he came back, he would have given you a report.
yes, that's
Yes.
correct.
That's if of course it did precede yours.
He would have had information.
He would have got all the information.
Even if I was to be the first to go, he would have already had information
Yes, yes.
about these Paras.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. So it seems to me, and I want you to comment on this, it seems to me that the Paras meeting wouldn't really have been essential for you if indeed your DG or head of department had been there, because he would be the operations man. He would be the one who would have got all the information in order to be able to make an assessment whether Paras could be a partner. But it may be that because you were going to be in India anyway, you might have thought, if we are going to have, if my department is going to have a working relationship with Paras, I may as well see them. So, but in terms of it being essential, it probably wouldn't have been. Would you agree or would you not agree?
Unfortunately, I don't agree, Chair.
Yeah, you think it was very essential.
My role is to play oversight,
Yeah,
even on these issues that
yeah,
there is a report that there is a black file with
yes,
white papers.
yeah,
As I get a chance to play an oversight,
yeah,
it is important for me
yeah,
to go and see whether this file exists.
yeah,
It is in the condition that I was told it is,
yeah.
and those details.
Okay.
We normally do that
Yes.
in our work as,
Okay.
yes.
Mr. Seleka,
Thank you,
I
Chair.
interrupted you.
No. Chair, the affidavit of Mr. Tabete is in the bundle. His trip was, according to him, on the 29th of February 2012 to the 4th of March 2012, so it would have preceded this one in October 2012.
Well, if that is so, my recollection is that by October, a lot of ground had been covered in terms of this the Estina project. So your meeting couldn't have been an essential meeting because by then, if my recollection is correct, the decision to partner with Paras had long been made. I may be mistaken, but I'm thinking there was an agreement that was concluded in June or July. I think there were three contracts. I think one was July 5, if I'm not mistaken. July 5. I know that there was one that was
June.
Or is it
7 June
7 June and so
2012.
on.
Yes.
So the relevant decisions had long been made, if that is the case.
Hence I've raised an issue of an oversight, Chair.
Yes,
Yes.
yes, but you can't verify whether they exist when you have already signed an agreement with them. You should verify that before you sign agreements, isn't it?
No. Chair, let me
say,
just
even if they have signed, I want to see.
let me just make a practical example, Chair.
Yeah.
In the space where I'm working, the Department of Transport, through its entity, having acquired a property in the airport in Brazil, long before I became a chairperson there. We normally apply to go on oversight, to go and see this property, whether it exists,
And what is happening there?
whether what is on the paper is on the ground. That
Yeah.
is normally a norm.
Okay.
It's actually better if everything has been signed, because you are not seen as a politician running ahead of you in terms of these processes, in terms of PFMA, that may not need you to be there in terms of verification. Once those processes are done, then you can come in and say, indeed, there is this, but you said that was there and it's not there.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Mr. Seleyo?
Yes. Yes, Chair, the affidavit of Mr. Tabete makes an interesting reading. And that's on page 353.340. Point 340.
Point 340. Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
From paragraph 9 onwards. So,
Yes, I'm there.
yeah. He says, I then made a request. Well, India, he says, is identified as the highest milk producer. And there was already an existing bilateral agreement on agriculture between South Africa and India. I then made a request to the Premier, Honorable E.S. Magashule, on recommendations of the former MEC Mosebenzi Joseph Zwane to take a trip to India, accompanied by Mr. Ashok Narayan, an advisor to the office of the Premier at the time. And in fact, he was not at the time, because his appointment was only on the 1st of March. I'll show you the letter. So the first part, Mr. Zwane, is that this trip was taken at your recommendation to India.
There was information as I get it here,
Yes.
about these paras having these quantities and so forth and so forth. Where did that information come from?
But was the trip undertaken at your recommendation?
No, Chair, I don't remember me recommending. In fact, we don't dictate to officials as to how they do their work, especially when it comes to issues of third parties who are appointed in a process that we are not party to. We normally don't involve ourselves.
Yeah, but this is contrary to the oversight you're playing. Because in this case, it's only to go to India, look at, you will see as it goes further in his affidavit, is to visit precisely this company called Paras. So I think his allegation would be consistent with your position that you would play an oversight role. Because he's not operating the project. He's only taking a trip to visit this potential company.
May I answer, Chair?
Yes.
That is not his role to play oversight. Oversight is always played by politicians. Officials implement. I see nothing wrong about this trip, I must say. If in his mind he wanted to make sure before he appoints these people that indeed what is said about them does exist, he was free to go to India.
Yeah, no, that's fine. But the one point which is of interest is that I read his affidavit, paragraph 9, to mean that you were the one who recommended that he undertakes this trip together with Mr. Ashok Narayana. Now, if I recall from his evidence, when he was giving evidence, and I may be mistaken, but I seem to think that he said that when you told him about him going with Mr. Narayana to India, that he said, you said that came from the Premier. I hope I'm not wrong, but he certainly said it was the fact that he had to go with Narayana wasn't something that came from him, and he seems to have said you told him, you mentioned him to him. But if my recollection is correct, it seems that you might have got it from the Premier. Does that jog your memory at all?
Yes, I do I do remember vividly what happened there, Chair.
Yeah.
And I did, on several occasions, painted that picture. And you'll see in my affidavit, I have been very consistent. I have said to this commission that there was a practice up until I left Free State, that if you're going on a trip as a department, after all your arrangement, there was a section in the associated with the Premier's department, not office, department, called International Relations. They would always recommend an official to accompany you who will be conversant. For an example, if we go to China, there were people who were trained in Mandarin in China, who would be able to take you through tradition and customs in China and be able to interpret the Mandarin when you're there. That was a practice. It did not need a premier to pinpoint an individual. This individual will be recommended to us, and when we do our request, which in this case will obviously be done by him to the premier, then we include this person.
I think you say it would be done by him. I found it strange that it was done by him in regard to you. I would have thought that if an MEC wanted the Premier's permission to travel overseas, the MEC would write to the Premier rather than an official writing to the Premier, asking the Premier to release the MEC. I can understand him writing in regard to officials in the department, but I found that a little strange, but maybe you say, no, that's how we used to do things.
Chair, on the face value, it looks strange. But the practicalities that puts me here today, if I were the one to run to the premier, I wouldn't be able to prove, as patients cast to me by everybody that I travel to India on a trip, all paid by the Guptas. No. So the paper trail has to be done through correct channels by officials. Once the MEC has taken a decision that I think it is prudent for the department to visit here and there, then we get into an official process of requesting. And that process indeed will be overseen by the HOD. Yes, Chair.
Okay, no, that's fine. Mr. Slayer.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Zwane, isn't it that Paris was going to team up with Estina to supply services or manage the project at Vrede?
I wouldn't have known details in terms of the nitty-gritties, because that process is not the process we are involved in, Chair. But I know that the information and the report as it was given is that Paras was a big dairy company who would assist the project to the level which you wanted it to be. Yes.
Well, I see in Mr. Tabete's affidavit, paragraph 10, you don't need to go there, that he says on his trip to India with Mr. Narayab, he did meet with the CEO of Paras Dairy. For some reason, he said whose name will be divulged at a later stage. And he explained the whole value chain of milk production in India. He says there were also staff members of Paras. We were further accompanied by the Indian delegation to visit the processing plant. And in India, I brought back my presentation from the Paras. It is on our return from India, that is paragraph 11, that I then developed an executive council's report carrying recommendations into the concept of a dairy project identified in India, see attachment MPT6. After the India trip, Mr. Nayarana went back to the office of the Premier, as he was not part of my team. He went with me for the sake of accompanying me to India. The Executive Council, upon receiving the report on recommendations of the MEC for the Department of Agriculture, then approval document is. I'm just mentioning that that's what I've just quoted. That in other words, even though you may not have met the CEO, Mr. Tabete had met the CEO of Paras. Okay.
Yes.
Mr. Selega.
Yes. Mr. Zwane, if you say you didn't know the details, Paras to team up with Estina in order to manage the project in October, which is about 4 or 5 months after the agreement is signed, for the purposes of a project which you initiated. Why wouldn't you have known what Paras' role is in the project?
Chair, I'm saying the report that we got indicated that Paras had the capacity to deal with the project. That stemmed from interactions that I was not part of because of PFMA, but officials will deal with those details in terms of appointing a service provider that is suitable for the project. Now, those details will not be the details that in Paras there is this one and this one and this one. It suffices when you are being informed that this is a company that is going to do work. This is the profile of the company. And if you have time, then you can play an oversight over what you have been told about the company. You don't go back and get details as to the nitty-gritties in terms of that company. Who will be subcontracted, who will be doing this. Unless there's something that is being raised at a later stage, either by Auditor General or Treasurer or somebody saying there is something here, then you dig deeper.
But,
Just like
yes, thanks. Sure. But I think you could freely tell the chairperson, because your response seems to suggest that it is Paras you were contracting with, but it wasn't. You contracted with Estina, a company called Estina. And in paragraph 12, Chair, Mr. Tabete explains how Estina comes about.
yes, that's true.
Yes. But you could say to the chairperson, here is Paras. In October, you go to Paras for a tour, to India to tour, amongst others, Paras. You say that didn't happen. But you are saying to the chairperson, you were playing an oversight role, but this is not the company you contracted with. You should be actually looking at Estina. Who is Estina? Because I want to play an oversight role. And hence the reason for my question. What did you understand Paras to be playing in the project, to be its role in the project? And I'm asking you this, let me conclude it, because then you can address everything. That Paras is said to have denied its involvement in the project.
Well, maybe let's start with this. Do you accept that no agreement, I just hope I'm right now,
Yes.
no agreement was ever concluded between the Department of Agriculture and Paras in regard to the Estina project?
Well, Chair, maybe let me say before we get to that point.
Yeah.
It is a fact that my HOD, together with Ashok Narayan, went to India and went to Paras. And this is a fact in terms of the report we got. That necessitated me, when I was going to India, to go and verify what was in the report. For the longest time, I have been under the impression that Paras is the one that is doing work in Friede, on the project called Friede. And until there were issues that were raised by Auditor General, I think in mid-2013, I have been operating under that impression. Yes.
And when you discovered that the department had never concluded any agreement with Paras, what did you do? In circumstances where all along you were under the impression that the department had an agreement with Paras.
Chair, if I was still in the department, and in this case, unfortunately, I was no longer in the department because I left the department early March.
2013? 2013.
Yes.
Okay, but when you discovered, was it after you had left the department? When you discovered that...
The report of the Auditor General was after when I had left.
Okay, all right.
And there was subsequently a report, I think, by Treasury, which came at a later stage when I was no longer there. So the remedial actions would have happened even when I was no longer there. I know, as we are seated here, having read all the information that is before me, that there were issues in terms of the contract, as you earlier have indicated that there was a contract in June, which was subsequently
replaced by another one in
replaced
July.
by another one. And government was involved at the highest level in terms of that contract, which normally is not in the purview ordinarily of ourselves. Yes. In my affidavit, the first affidavit, I've tried to paint a picture as to the process. You go to the community, you identify their needs, then you come up with a concept, as I have done. And this concept is tested, for a lack of a better word, even at the level of the executive, after having tested it with the department. And everybody says, no, this is a concept that we think it's correct, and we can try this concept. And then thereafter, once this concept has passed, it went through the state of the province, which was...
Yes, but hang on, Mr. Zwane, we understand that.
Yes.
The question is really relates to Paras.
Yes.
So you have said that you did get to know at some stage that the Department of Agriculture had not concluded any contract or agreement with Paras. But you say you only got to know that after you had left the department.
Yes.
Because you say you left the Department of Agriculture in March 2013.
Yes,
Is
Chair.
that right? Now, did Mr. Tabet, the HOD of your department, tell you that there was a contract between the department and Paras? Is that where you got the information from, or where did you get the information from that there was an agreement or contract between the department and Paras?
Chair, there was information, as I indicated earlier, that there is a company called Paras in India, which has the capacity to undertake the magnitude of the project that we envisaged. And as such, officials went to India to verify, and they came back and they were happy, right? And then the work started internally in terms of administration.
But the question is, did Mr. Tabet tell you that the department had concluded an agreement with Paras, or did he not tell you? Where did you get the impression from that there was an agreement between the Department of Agriculture and Paras?
Because normally, Chair, nobody will be given work without having followed the due processes, as we all know them. So that was my impression about Paras.
Yes, but was it your impression, or did he tell you as the HOD? Remember that This is somebody that had undertaken a trip to Paris in India.
Yes.
And you knew about the trip. You obviously approved the trip as the MEC. When I say approved, I don't necessarily mean down, but I don't think he would have gone there without political approval. But, and you say you knew about the trip, you supported the trip. Mm-hmm. The Premier supported the trip, approved the trip at least. Now, did he say to you, we do have an agreement as a department with Paras, or did he not say that?
I don't remember him saying that. Chair.
Yes. So your impression that there was an agreement between the department and Paras was based on what?
My agreement was based on...
Your impression?
My impression was based on the fact that it was a common cause that there should be processes, due processes that are followed in identifying a service provider. Mm-hmm. And that those processes are being undertaken by HOD, mm-hmm. assisted by other officials. Mm-hmm. And once the HOD has taken all these processes, mm-hmm. We are ready to move. Mm-hmm. We don't many a times get to a point where we are shown contracts or are told about contracts being ready. In the report, normally, what comes is that we are going to be working with Paras, which in this case was the case I was told. That is why in October, I also wanted to go and play my oversight when I was in India. Mm. That's how far I knew about Paras, Chair.
Did you ever ask Mr. Tabete for the agreement with Paras? Because you were under the impression that the department had an agreement with Paras. Did you ever ask him to show you the agreement?
We do not normally do that if there's nothing untowards or there is a query raised, Chair. But
how are you going to play your oversight if your department has, or you understand the department to have a contract with another entity involving millions and millions of rands, and you never even want to see this contract?
Chair, there were a number of contracts that were entered into by the department, except this contract. Those contracts were not shown to us, not only me and other MECs. What you normally get as a report is that here's a service provider who's going to do these things after a process have been undertaken. And if you have any question, you then raise your question at that particular point. Or if there is any suspicion, you then go deep to say, was the due process followed and how were the process followed? Driven by any suspicion, but if there is no suspicion, what you normally do is to ensure that what the HOD has undertaken to do is taking place.
But my question is, you said as MEC, your role is to play oversight.
Yes.
Over the department, over the HOD. You take the trouble of wanting to meet the CEO of Paras, wanting to go to Paras and meet them because you want to even verify whether this Paras exists or whatever you want to verify. One would have thought that if you want to do that, the least you would do is, let me see the contract that the department has. How do you play oversight in regard to a project where you have no idea what the contract says about the project and the partnership?
Let me revert back to my earlier example of a property owned by AXA in Brazil. If we apply to go and play our oversight in Brazil, it has never happened here that we normally get into the details of saying, let's see how the contract, how this property was acquired, the contract and so forth. We look at the report in front of us, and based on that report, we take that report we go and play our oversight. If there are issues we pick up there, we then come back and say, there are these issues, give us further information. So normally, that is how we do things. So it wouldn't have come to me that in this case specifically, I must look for a contract before I go there. Because that has not been the norm. I don't think any MEC in the Free State has done that, Chair.
But then if you don't do it that way, you don't ask to see the contract. When you see the contract, you might not need to go through every clause, but at least you can look at the main clauses or features. There might be a memorandum that explains to you the main features of the contract, but at least you see it, you know. Now, when you don't see it and you don't call for the contract, the result may be what happened. Namely, in October 2012, you are under the impression that your department has a contract with Paras. You are in India, you want to meet with the CEO of Paras. And I suspect you are going to say to the CEO of Paras, I know that we have a contract with you, and then he would say, what are you talking about? you would feel embarrassed, I would imagine, because the department didn't have a contract. But then the question that arises is, even the trip that Mr. Tabete undertook to India, even whatever expenses, if any, may have been connected with your meeting with him, maybe there were not any because you were going to be in India anyway, or other meetings, they could have been fruitless and wasteful expenditure, because why are you going to India to meet an entity with whom you have no contract? You understand? Whereas if you asked for the contract, you would have been told, the department would have failed to give you a contract. And you would have said, but why, what kind of partnership do you say we have with Paras if we don't even have a contract? You would have raised that question, isn't it?
Yeah, let me answer that question simply.
Yeah.
By referring you to page 241, is 353.241.
Yes, I'm there.
As the chair has read this letter that goes to the Premier, and the letter is from the HOD. This letter has an itinerary that points me to Paras. In October, as the chair is saying, I mean, if my assertion in this commission is not right, why would, in my itinerary written by the HOD, still write Paras?
No. Nobody says you were not. You are saying you were under the impression that the department had a contract with Paras.
Yes.
You said you you are not in a position to say Mr. Tabete told you that the department had a contract with Paras. Okay? Nobody says your impression, your evidence that you were under that impression is wrong. So nobody is saying you did not have that impression. You understand? So I asked you what gave rise to that impression, and you may legitimately point to, among other things, the fact that in the letter that Mr. Tabete wrote to the Premier, he said you were going to meet, you were going to have a meeting with Paras officials or whoever. There may be other things that he said to you that made you gain that gave you that impression. But what is strange to me is that also Mr. Tabete, when he was giving evidence before this commission, if I recall correctly, I certainly understood him for quite some time to be saying we were working with Paras. But one was looking for the contract. So where is the contract with Paras? Because we can only see an agreement between the department and Estina. And Estina is not Paras. And then he said, if I recall correctly, he was under the impression that there was an agreement between Estina and Paras, that Estina would be assisted by Paras or something like that. But the whole project, I think, was promoted on the basis that Paras was part of the project. But there was nothing in writing that had been signed by Paras with the department to say Paras was part of the project. That's my recollection. Does it accord with your understanding?
Chair, I think your recollection will come handy with what I've referred the chair to.
Yeah.
In October, already, Paras was still an entity or a service provider, according to my knowledge and impression.
Your understanding?
Yes, Chair.
But now, what did you know Estina's role to be in this project as at October 2012? Did you know about Estina at all?
No.
You did not know about Estina?
No, sir. No, Chair.
When did you hear about Estina being involved in this project for the first time?
I think there was an issue raised by Treasury, if I recall well, and Estina, that is why the Free Dairy ended up being couched as the Estina Free Dairy. And when asking, is Paras Estina, but then there was information, I think at the level of EXCO, if I'm not mistaken, I can't recall, that these companies were working together.
So do you recall round about when it was that this
I think it was
transpired?
I think it was 2014. No, I was long gone by then.
So by the time you left the department in March 2013,
yes,
you had not heard about Estina being involved in this project?
No, Chair.
Mr. Tabet had never told you about it, either in writing or verbally?
No, Chair. not of what I remember. No. That is why in October, I was still going to Paris. I would have endeavored to check where is Estina, what does it look like as I play my oversight.
Well, that's very strange or interesting. But then, Mr. Zwane, you have to concede that there must have been something wrong with how you were performing your oversight function over the department and over the HOD. If for at least a year, 2012, because Mr. Tabete went to India to visit Paris in February 2012, you left the department in March 2013. If for a whole year you were under the impression that in regard to this project, Paras was the department's partner. It had a contract with the department on this project, and you had heard nothing about Estina, which was the entity that actually had an agreement with the department, then there must be something that was terribly wrong with performing oversight function. Whatever it is, we might not be able to detect that maybe, but any oversight where your own HOD, where your department can give you the impression that it has a contract with entity A, involving millions and millions of rands on a certain project, when actually it only has a contract with B, and you are not aware of this entity called B, then there must be something that is not going well. It shouldn't be like that, isn't it?
Chair, I think this commission will appreciate that I did take an initiative of playing oversight on the information that was before me. And the evidence is here, right in front of the commission. Number two, the chair has just said, in terms of his best recollection, the HOD, when he was here, gave an impression that he himself was under that impression that Paras was actually the service provider. Now, Chair, I think I did indicate this in previously, that these are the people appointed in terms of their knowledge, skills, and qualifications to do this work as given to them by law. Now, if a report comes to me and I follow the report, and as this commission can see, that I did attempt to go and meet with the service provider, and it is here in the itinerary, I wouldn't have honestly a view that I was not playing my oversight. If at all the evidence in this commission was contrary, even in terms of the chair's understanding that no, Estina has always been there, and I'm talking about Paras, I would agree with the chair. The chair is saying, in terms of his own recollection, that's what the HOD said in this commission. And I'm saying, that's correct, that was also an information given to me. So I followed that information and reports as given to me, and played my oversight over the reports. I am not...
Mr. Zwane, The proposition is there must be something terribly wrong in the performance of oversight if it leads to a situation where the MEC of the department thinks the department has a contract with a company in India, and it turns out he even wants to go and meet with the CEO of that company in India, and it turns out that his department never had a contract with that company, number one. Number two, if it turns out that instead his department had a contract with a local company, Estina, and for a whole year he didn't know about it. I'm saying there must be something terribly wrong if performance of the oversight function by the MEC does not enable him to discover that. Do you disagree?
Yes, I do.
Yes, why? You think the oversight function would be performed quite well if such challenges would arise?
I'm painting a picture here, Chair, that oversight is played in terms of the information that is played before you. When you play oversight, you don't go and dig what is not in front of you, unless there is an information or somebody has raised an issue in terms of the same report that is in front of you.
But
The report,
you call for information as well.
there is,
You mustn't just rely on what officials give you. You must have an understanding that will enable you to say, I see what you are giving me, but there's something else you should be giving me that you are not giving me. I want that. Where's this? Where's that? Where's that? Bring it here. That's what you should do. You shouldn't say, this is what the officials give me. I will only look at what the officials give me. What do you say to that?
no, Chair, it's not like that, unfortunately, in the public sector.
You say it is fine if, are you saying that as an MEC in performing your oversight function over the department, you must only look at what the officials give you? You must not call for other documents that they might not be giving you, which are important or relevant for your oversight function.
Once you know that there are documents that are not given to you, once that comes to your knowledge, you will indeed request for that additional information. It is a standard in departments that in a particular time you must get a report in terms of how things are going. In a particular time, you must then play your oversight based on the report that is placed before you. Now, I'm saying to this commission, based on the information that was put before me, signed by the HOD about Paras, it is here. I was going to Paras myself in October to play my oversight, because at that particular time, there was nothing that was, and I would have, without any hesitation, acted. And then I would have then gone to what the chair is saying. Now bring the documents, let me see the contract, embarrassed as I would be. But I will then, at that point, because there is this issue that has been raised, I know about it, get to deeper details. But if there's nothing, normally, Chair, we don't ask for something that we don't know.
Mr. Stilega, let me allow you to put questions to Mr. I know we are 4 minutes to 1, but I think let's adjourn for lunch at 1:15. Let me give you a chance to.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, Mr. Zwane, a couple of things, and I was struck by the fact that you said the meeting with the CEO of Paris in India didn't take place. But I thought that itinerary of yours would have been arranged on the basis that whoever you're going to see has agreed to see you. It's a prior arrangement. That's why it's then dated. Even the date is there, and you will know which day you're seeing who, which day you're seeing which one. So how come that the CEO was not available?
Chair, I did say the CEO was not available. Something urgent had cropped up. I did say that.
Okay. Two, in regard to, back to the issues the chairperson has been dealing with you, Chair, we might as well just go into Estina.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
You see, we've got the...
I'm sure, Mr. Zwane, you can see this, you know, the picture that emerges is you're going all the way to India to meet with somebody that you believe is the CEO of the company that the department has an agreement with. Actually, it's wrong. There's no agreement. But here is Estina locally. You are not. You don't know about them. You don't go and do oversight there. Anyway, Mr. Silega.
Yes. And Mr. Zwane, the evidence of the CFO, Ms. Sipati Dlamini, talks about your call to her, your telephone call to her
Okay.
on the 15th of June 2012. Now this is some 2 days or 3 days after your department or the ESCO has approved the project. You approved on the 12th of June 2012. On the 15th, she receives a call from you, she says. And you wanted to go to a meeting in regard to the 30 million rand prepayment. And guess it was to who in regard to the project? It was to Estina.
Can I answer?
Yes, please.
Thank you very much, Advocate Seleka.
Yeah.
The information that this commission should have is that when this project was approved by EXCO, there were issues, number one, that were to be looked into by the committee, Treasury Committee.
Yes, I would like you to deal with that in due course because we're going to come into them.
Okay.
But just your comment on, you called her. You said go to a meeting with MEC, is it MEC or Mr. Mohali? And this was in regard to the prepayment of 30 million rand to none other than Estina.
Maybe I'm taking a long route. Let me be short.
Okay.
And get to that particular point. I made a call to the CFO. It was on Friday afternoon. I think she has also said that.
Correct, yes.
That I was supposed to report. We had ESCO on every Wednesday. I am supposed to go back to ESCO and report in terms of the work done since the last ESCO. And he then raised an issue that the Treasury seems to be still busy in terms of what they need to do. I then called the MEC of Treasury and asked him, is there any progress that we will report? Because we're both going to that ex-committee on Wednesday. The MEC said, no, I am busy with my officials. I am at this place. It will be important if you can make your officials available should there be any questions to clarify in terms of the progress in this project. My call was not specifically a call that was aimed at the releasing of 30 million. It was a call that was saying, as we go to the ESCO, let us know how much we have progressed, or there are issues that will need us to have more time in terms of treasury. We will have to give that report. That was my call to the CFO.
So what did you ask the CFO to do?
I asked the CEO to join the MEC of Treasury with his team. He had given me a venue where they were meeting. They were in a meeting when I talked to him. He said, no, fortunately we are here, we are meeting, so we can look at that issue. And if
What issue was that?
the progress in terms of what needed to be done by the committee and the department pertaining the project. Let me just, maybe for the sake of viewers, there was an issue of 84 million that the Treasury Committee had to look into. There was an issue of about 30 million that our department had said, the Department of Agriculture, it is available. Now, looking at the magnitude of what was needed and Treasury had to look into, we had to go back to ESCO and say it is feasible or it's not feasible, or we'll need to buy more time in terms of allowing officials to work on this project. That was my call to her to say, let us not be found wanting, because we are the lead department in terms of this project. If Treasury is saying they are ready, they can engage on this matter and resolve, can you please then go to a meeting, meet with the officials there and the MEC, you will give me a report on Monday.
So you say it was about 84 million, not the 30 million rand.
Treasury was looking into the feasibility of getting this 84 million.
For your department?
For the project.
For the project, yeah.
Yes. 30 million, to the best of my recollection, Chair. The department was required to reprioritize within the department.
Yeah.
It is that reprioritization that would go back to ESCO to talk about. It is also the feasibility of the 84 that will bring the whole annual amount of this project to 114 million. So my view was that let us not be found wanting on our side in terms of giving information. That was the essence of the call.
So to your knowledge, the meeting to which you were sending the CFO was to discuss money for the Estina project.
I don't know whether to call it Estina or Paras. It's like the issue of the choir.
I've never heard it called Paras project.
But let me accept, Chair, after this discussion.
Or Friede Dairy project, we can, if you
yes,
want.
Friede Dairy project. That was the arrangement in terms of finances of that project, yes.
But you see, Mr. Zwane, okay, let me ask this question. I take it that you reported regularly to the Executive Council about how this project was going, as well as other projects in your department.
I take it, Chair, that the leader of evidence here has just reported that this was a project recently approved.
Yes.
Yes.
No, what I mean, once it had been approved,
yes,
going forward up to the time you left the department, I take it that you reported regularly at certain intervals to EXCO
that is
as
correct,
to how
yeah,
the project was going.
Yes.
Is that right?
That is right.
And would that have been maybe, at least once a month or once every 3 months? Or is that
It will depend, Chair, in terms of the priority given to the project.
Yeah, okay, okay.
This project, as it was approved, there was agency attached to it.
Yeah,
It is there in the minutes of EXCO.
Yeah.
And once you have that, and it was a flagship project that was also announced in the state of the province of the Premier. So it
was an important project.
will gain that priority that any time when you are given a task to perform, you must be ready that you should report.
Regularly.
Not even regularly. There might be a question, how far are you in terms of, you should not be found wanting.
Okay, okay.
So that was the drive in terms of this project. Yeah.
So in other words, you should be up to date.
You must be up to
because
date.
you can be asked anytime.
Anytime, yes.
Yes. You see, it's just it's just difficult to understand how it is possible that on a project that was so important to the province and to EXCO and to your department, and on which you could be asked any time, you could be asked questions, you may have to report any time. How it is possible that throughout the period of February 2012 up to March when you left 2013, you could not have known that there was Estina playing a role in the project unless the head of department made a concerted effort that you should not know about Estina.
Chair, maybe I must try and give some more information on that.
Yeah.
I think around March, April
2012.
2010. In my speech, as an MEC now of the Department of Agriculture and Rural Development, I tabled this project, not in February, March, April, right? And once I have tabled, the Premier will come with a helicopter view of what this department will do and that, but the department will then give details during their presentation. This is a project that was announced by the Premier around March or late February, let's say so. Our department will be around April. And after April, when the project has been announced by the department, work will start to happen. Then it's May, June, going forward. In fact, if you count from that point, you will see that from April to June, it was 2 months. June to September, 4 months. November, 6 months. Around 8, you see.
March, 9 months.
The following year. Now, for all intents and purposes, Chair, I did what I could. I don't want to cast aspersions because I don't like that happening to me also. But I give what was brought to me and I acted upon it.
And what was brought to you or what was told to you by the HOD, Mr. Tabete, did not include him telling you that the company that the department had a contract with or an agreement with was Estina. That's not part of what he told you.
That's correct, Chair.
Yes. Okay. Mr. Sleg, I know I said I was giving you time and then I took over. But
No problem.
you have 5 minutes before we take the lunch break. Yeah.
My time is your time, Chair. If you spend it, it's as much as I spend it, Chair. Mr. Zwane, Mr. Mini specifically, the affidavit is here, Chair, specifically talks...
Please tell me where to find it.
Page 353.398.
398, okay.
Yes.
Continue.
She is specifically talking about the 30 million rand in regard to your call to her on the 15th of June 2012. So you will see on page 353.409,
Point
409, paragraph 9.
409. Yes, Chair.
Paragraph 9. So this whole part, the reference, you will see it's only to the 30 million. 9.1 says, on the self-same day, 15 June 2012, which was a Friday afternoon, I had received urgent instructions from the MEC of Agriculture and Rural Development, i.e. Mr. M. Zwane, to urgently attend a meeting with MEC of Finance, i.e. Mr. M. Is it Mohal?
Mohai.
Mohai.
Yes.
Is that an I?
Yes.
I at the end, thank you. I could sense urgency in the instruction given the fact that I had to do it on a Friday in the afternoon. And there was also a bank credit transfer document that had to go through Treasury for it to be sent to the bank in order for the bank to transfer the payment to the intended beneficiary, bracket Estina, to pay for the project. The bank credit transfer document comes in the picture where payment of any amount above 1 million had to be made. This process had started with myself and the Director of Finance in the Department of Agriculture, having followed correct processes to request payment of 30 million rand. The next paragraph. At the 15 June 2012, when I was instructed by MEC Zwane to meet with MEC Mohai, the Department of Agriculture had already remitted all the necessary documentation to Treasury so that Treasury could assist in their formal finalization of the payment of 30 million rand, which payment was intended for the beneficiaries. I will skip the paragraphs. Let's go to the next page, paragraph 9.6. I arrived at Antaboga Hotel for the meeting. So this is a meeting in a private hotel.
Yes, Chair.
It's not in the department.
We did not have sufficient venues, so it was a normal practice in the Free State to do that. Safe to say this was not my meeting, Chair. Before I cast aspersions, or this was the meeting organized by Treasury, I just requested my official to join them. I may not know the details.
Okay. You take no responsibility for it being outside of the offices of a department.
I am just relating that was a no.
Yes, okay.
Yeah, we used to do that in the Free State.
Yeah. Okay, here is the... Now, she has emphasized she could sense urgency, and in the subsequent paragraph, she would say the same thing. And the urgency from your communication with her. And it is specifically in regard to the payment of the 30 million rand. How did you know that this payment had to be made? 1. 2, what was urgent about it? But let's deal with the first part. How did you know this amount had to be paid?
Can I respond?
Yes.
Thank you very much, Chair. I think I had already responded to this question. In terms of my call to the CFO, my call was never about the payment of any money to anybody. My call was about the progress that I needed to report back to ESCO, as I have said. So that is what I want to put on record to this commission.
Sorry, I'm confused. This meeting Ms. Dlamini is talking about, it's about to determine why there is a delay in paying the 30 million rand.
The meeting is about Treasury and Agriculture preparing a response, should it be needed, in the next meeting, which was the next Wednesday, about 2 aspects: the reprioritization of projects within the department itself to the tune of 30 million,
Yes.
and the issue of 84 million.
Yes.
My call was about that. It was not about paying anybody. That is not my purview. To the best of my recollection, I have not sought to interfere unless there is somebody who has not been paid within the period that we have said people should be paid. In Free State, in this case, it was 30 days.
Well, I see that Ms. Dlamini, later in her affidavit, at page 353.415.
Chair, can I interject?
Okay, I think I know why.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, let's take the lunch break. We will resume. It's now nearly 1:20. We'll resume at 2:20.
Thank you, Chair.
We adjourn.